So imagine your entire neighborhood is just locked in this massive, deeply destructive feud.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, like we are talking property lines being violently disputed, fences being torn down, just absolute
This
chaos.
sounds incredibly tense.
It is right.
Yeah.
Real damage is being done, and people are genuinely hurting. And then, right in the middle of this acute crisis, someone decides to throw a multi-million-dollar block party
Wait, what?
while everyone is fighting.
Exactly. Complete with fireworks, a marching band, this massive feast, and absolutely zero mention of the fact that, half the neighborhood isn't speaking to the other half.
That is, I mean, it creates this massive cognitive dissonance.
Right.
You're standing there with a plate of barbecue, watching fireworks,
Yeah.
while the house across the street is metaphorically, or maybe literally on fire.
Yeah.
The instinct is just to say, shouldn't we mediate these disputes before we tap the keg and start dancing?
And that exact dissonance is what we are wading into today. So, welcome back to another deep dive. We are so glad you are here with us.
Always great to be here. Today, we are putting a magnifying glass on something you are probably already gearing up for. I'm talking about the 2026 North and Central America World Cup.
Right, which kicks off June 12th, 2026.
Exactly, co-hosted by the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. But we aren't really looking at this the way a sports network would.
No, definitely not. We are actually analyzing this really fascinating lecture and Q&A session that was recorded in Cheonan, South Korea on May 15th, 2026.
Yeah, and it's wild.
It really is. The speaker in the source material poses a very heavy foundational challenge to the way we consume global entertainment.
So the mission for our deep dive today isn't to analyze sports stats or penalty kicks or bracket predictions.
Leave that to the sports radio guys.
Exactly. Our mission is to explore a profound question raised by our source, which is, in an era of intense, deep global division, what is the actual structural point of these massive international sports festivals?
And more importantly, how can we radically reframe them so they actually serve humanity rather than just, distracting it?
Because it's a text that completely deconstructs the psychology of why we cheer for our home countries.
Yeah, but it doesn't just stop at critique. I mean, it offers a surprisingly practical, highly specific blueprint for changing the world.
Which sounds impossible, but...
Right, but they suggest doing it by directly targeting the organizing committees of the World Cup and the Olympics.
Let's set the stage a bit here. The hype for the 2026 World Cup is just monumental. We have an expanded roster of teams, a massive three-country hosting dynamic, and billions of dollars pouring into infrastructure.
Huge. Just a massive undertaking.
But our source immediately pulls the emergency brake on all that. It forces us to look away from the shiny new stadiums and really look at the stark reality of the world those stadiums are being built inside of.
Yeah. The lecture paints an uncompromising picture. The speaker points out that while we are busy, printing tickets and selling broadcast rights, the global landscape is violently fractured.
Like, genuinely in crisis.
Completely. The text specifically calls out intense national conflicts, aggressive superpower hegemony, severe economic crises, massive refugee displacement, and just deep-seated culture clashes.
The speaker's incredibly blunt about it, too. They say that right now, people are actively suffering. There are bombings. There are wars. People are being killed globally.
It's a heavy reality check.
It is. And the central thesis starts with a moral question. With all this tragedy, how can humanity blindly rush into a month-long festival?
Because the argument being made is that hosting an unexamined, purely celebratory event while the world is practically burning is a profound failure of human priorities.
Like throwing the block party during the feud.
Exactly. The source demands we understand the true cultural meaning of why we are gathering before we give ourselves permission to party.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want to push back here a little bit on behalf of every sports fan listening.
Sure, go for it.
If the world is dealing with so much heaviness, wars, economic depression, constant cultural anxiety, isn't a massive, distracting sporting event exactly the medicine we need?
I mean, escapism has a real psychological function.
Right. When the news is relentlessly grim, turning your brain off for 90 minutes to watch a brilliant soccer match feels incredibly valuable. So why does the source argue that this isn't the time for a festival?
What's fascinating here is that the source is absolutely not anti-sports. And it isn't against humanity gathering either.
Okay.
It's anti-apathy. The text is pointing out a massive missed opportunity regarding human attention.
How so? Like, what are we missing?
Think about the sociological concept of collective effervescence.
Collective effervescence.
Yeah, it's that undeniable electric energy that happens when millions of people focus on the exact same thing at the exact same time.
Oh, right, like a stadium all cheering at once.
Exactly. But usually governments and corporations hijack that energy to sell nationalism or, sneakers.
Totally.
The source argues that relying on mere escapism wastes that incredibly rare, concentrated global attention. If you just use the World Cup as a distraction, you get a temporary dopamine hit, sure.
But the global fires are still burning when the closing ceremony ends.
Exactly. The speaker is saying we need to leverage this collective energy to actually address the fractures in society.
Which brings us to the actual mechanisms of change. Because if a traditional distraction-based festival is a waste of global attention, what does the source suggest we actually do?
Well, the text suggests that a massive paradigm shift starts with the most fundamental tool of all, which is language.
Specifically, renaming the events.
Yeah. The source makes a really bold proposal to literally change the titles. It shouldn't just be the World Cup. It should be officially rebranded as the World Peace World Cup.
Or the World Peace Olympic.
Right.
But, let's be real for a second. Slapping the word peace on a corporate banner feels kind of like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound.
I get that.
How does a simple rebrand actually change the behavior of a warring nation or alter the entrenched bureaucracy of a global sports committee?
Because it is not about a superficial banner. It is about establishing a binding public mandate.
Okay, explain that.
The speaker is tapping into a deep linguistic philosophy where the message is literally embedded in the words we use. When an organizing body officially rebrands an event to the World Peace World Cup, they are instantly changing the expectation of the global audience.
They're kind of trapping themselves into a promise.
Exactly. More importantly, they are explicitly stating the intention of the gathering. Once that intention is public, the organizing committee is culturally and practically obligated to allocate resources to peace-building initiatives.
Instead of just, logistics and ad sales.
Right. It forces a change in the event's underlying architecture.
And the source takes this a step further when discussing the physical sports themselves. It argues that the whole concept of winning, losing, and nationalist bragging, this whole idea that our country physically dominated your country, is completely missing the point.
Yeah, the athletic competition is merely the bait.
The bait.
That is the core premise. The physical sports, the running, the kicking, the scoring, are viewed purely as an assembly mechanism.
Oh, wow.
It is a highly effective logistical tool to get billions of people to look at the same screen or sit in the same stadium.
So what does this all mean? If I can upgrade our earlier block party analogy here.
Go for it.
It is like an elite group of programmers open sourcing a new software patch to fix a failing operating system.
I like this.
The massive sports stadiums and the broadcasting networks are the hardware. They are incredibly powerful, but currently they are running on an outdated, buggy software called nationalism. The sports are just the user interface to get people to log on.
That is a highly accurate way to frame it. If we spend all our energy arguing about the user interface, like who scored the most goals, who got a red card, we have completely ignored the operating system we are supposed to be upgrading.
Right. So if the sports are just the bait to get us logged in, what does the source say the main event, the actual software update, should be?
The main event must be genuine cultural exchange. The text demands that the gathering be paired with researched, deliberate cultural programming that actively teaches citizens how to understand one another.
So it has to be intentional.
Very intentional. It has to produce something of structural, lasting value for human society, not just a gold trophy that gets locked in a glass case in one specific country.
But history shows us that messaging is incredibly tricky, right? You can have the best intentions, but totally fail in the execution.
Oh, absolutely.
And the source addresses this directly by pointing to a very specific historical example. It serves as a cautionary tale, proving that while messaging matters, it completely falls apart without a sociological enforcement mechanism.
The speaker points directly to the 1988 Seoul Olympics.
Ah, the ghost of '88. For anyone familiar with international sports history, 1988 was a monumental year.
Huge.
The U.S. and the Soviet Union had been boycotting each other's games in 1980 and 1984. So '88 was this massive, incredibly tense global reunion.
And the source highlights the cultural impact of that year's theme, specifically the official song and message, Hand in Hand, or Sonjapgo in Korean.
The imagery was incredibly potent, It was the era of the Cold War beginning to thaw, and the explicit goal of that message was breaking down walls to unite humanity.
Yeah, and the source readily acknowledges that the 1988 Olympics successfully threw an enormous, beautiful message of unity out into the world.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the 1988 Olympics are widely viewed as a massive success.
They are.
The song charted globally, the vibe was perfect, and the political tension was momentarily eased. Yet the source points out a critical failure, claiming there was no follow-up research.
Right.
I have to ask, what does that actually mean? Are they really saying that a brilliant slogan and the emotional high of a successful tournament aren't enough to achieve world peace?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the source's critique is that an emotional high is fleeting. Throwing a message out into the ether is the easy part.
Sure.
Singing hand in hand in a stadium creates that temporary collective effervescence we talked about earlier. But the '88 Olympics failed because the organizers did not research the how.
The actual logistics of unity.
Yes. How do citizens practically hold hands across deep systemic cultural divides once they go back to their respective countries?
Like, how does this work on a Tuesday?
Exactly. How do we literally become one global community after the television broadcasts end? The text argues that an event is only a true global festival if it institutes structural benefits.
Which didn't happen in '88.
No, because there was no follow-up sociological programming, the momentum of 1988 faded into nostalgia. It remained a nice memory rather than a permanent paradigm shift.
We had the world's attention, we had the perfect message, but we didn't have an instruction manual for Monday morning when the party was over.
That's a great way to put it.
So if Hand in Hand was just a temporary high, then whoever hosts the next games needs an enforcement mechanism for peace. They need that instruction manual.
And that brings us to the highly specific, actionable blueprint the source lays out for 2026 and beyond.
Let's get into it.
This blueprint centers around a very unique, specific concept in the text. They call them social parents, or sahobumo in Korean.
We need to pause and really define this because the source makes a very bold claim here. It states that this role of social parents uniquely belongs to South Korea.
It does.
Why South Korea specifically? What gives them the geopolitical or cultural mandate to act as a parent to the globe?
Well, it stems from South Korea's highly unique historical and cultural positioning. The lecture implies that because South Korea was completely decimated by war, literally caught in the crossfire of major global superpowers,
Right.
and yet they managed to rapidly modernize into a cultural and economic powerhouse. So they possess a completely unique perspective. They have lived through the absolute worst of human division and the extremes of rapid development.
I see.
This gives their culturally mature citizens, these social parents, both the insight and the moral obligation to step up and guide the broader global society away from conflict.
So it is a sense of ultimate responsibility born from survival and rapid evolution.
Extreme.
And the source outlines a two-pronged action plan for these social parents. Let's look at the short-term play first, which targets the upcoming 2026 World Cup.
Because the 2026 World Cup is rapidly approaching, the directive is urgent. These social parents need to organize immediately, draft a formal, meticulously researched proposal, and submit it directly to the World Cup organizing committees.
Just hand it over to them.
Yep. The proposal must demand the urgent insertion of cultural peace festival elements into the upcoming games, effectively forcing the paradigm shift to begin right now.
And then there is the long-term plan, which looks ahead to the Olympics returning to the U.S., specifically Los Angeles in 2028.
Right.
The source uses a really striking sociological phrase to describe the United States here. It calls the U.S. a humanity new city, or Yusindosi.
It is a brilliant way to reframe American demographics, actually.
Yeah.
The text points out that the U.S. is a literal microcosm of the globe. People from virtually every nation, culture, and background have migrated there. It is quite literally a new city built by a sample size of all humanity.
Well, that makes sense.
Therefore, the source suggests that South Korea's social parents should pitch a massive, comprehensive cultural festival to the Olympic Committee, specifically designed to make this unique global melting pot truly shine as a beacon of unified coexistence.
Now, I am reading this and acting as the proxy for the skeptical listener right now.
Let's hear it.
Let's be totally realistic. FIFA and the International Olympic Committee are massive, bureaucratic, notoriously profit-driven machines.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like being a guest at a wedding and handing the DJ a meticulously researched playlist to save the reception. If a group of citizens, even a highly organized group of social parents from South Korea, sends them an unsolicited peace manifesto, Isn't it just going straight into a corporate spam folder?
I mean, you'd think so, but this raises an important question about how institutional change actually happens. The source relies heavily on the concept of synergy.
Synergy. Sounds like a corporate buzzword.
It can sound like one, sure, but the mechanism behind it is very practical. Yes, these committees are bureaucratic, but right now they are also facing an existential crisis.
What kind of crisis?
The crisis of narrative and relevance. I mean, fewer cities want to host these mega events because of the massive debt they incur.
Oh, that's true. The bidding process has been a mess lately.
Exactly. The committees are constantly battling PR nightmares regarding corruption, human rights issues, and local protests. They know how to sell broadcast rights, but they are absolutely starved for a transcendent, culturally profound narrative that justifies their existence to a modern, critical audience.
Ah, so they are desperate for a PR lifeline that is actually substantive.
Exactly. When these social parents provide a fully formed, culturally profound paradigm, the how of world peace, the instruction manual that 1988 lacked, it creates massive synergy.
Because it solves a problem for both sides.
Right. The committees will adopt it not necessarily out of pure altruism, but because it saves their brand. By taking the initiative to provide this absent software patch, the citizens can trigger a massive ripple effect that fundamentally transforms how these global bodies operate.
It completely flips the power dynamic.
Yeah.
Instead of us passively consuming whatever entertainment the committees feed us, the citizens are actively demanding that the infrastructure of sports serves a higher human purpose.
And it requires a massive shift in how we, the viewers, operate too. We have to stop obsessing over the scoreboard and start evaluating the cultural exchange happening around the stadium.
Which is the perfect place to pull all of these threads together.
Yeah,
We have gone on quite an intellectual journey with this deep dive today.
we really have.
We started by confronting the unsettling dissonance of celebrating massive, expensive block parties while the globe is dealing with severe crises, wars, and suffering.
And then we unpacked the subtle structural power of language. How simply renaming an event to a World Peace Festival forces an organizing committee to change its public mandate from pure entertainment to actual peace building.
We looked back at the cautionary tale of the 1988 Seoul Olympics, realizing that a beautiful slogan like Hand in Hand completely fails without the sociological follow-up research to teach people exactly how to maintain that connection once the TV cameras turn off.
And finally, we explored the bold, actionable blueprint for the future. The concept of social parents stepping up to draft the exact cultural roadmap that these massive narrative-starved organizing committees so desperately need for 2026 and 2028.
It all comes down to how you, listening to this right now, will engage with the next big match. When the 2026 World Cup kicks off and the national anthems start echoing through the stadiums, what exactly are you participating in?
Are you just turning your brain off to watch a distraction?
Or are you part of a massive collective human gathering that should, and honestly must, demand more from itself?
Because the physical sports, as the lecture so clearly points out, are just the bait to get us all in the same room. What we choose to do with each other once we are logged in is what truly determines the value of the event.
And as we wrap up, we want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building directly on that premise.
Yeah.
If the ultimate goal is bringing humanity together to foster peace, and physical sports are merely the gathering mechanism, what happens is our reality shifts.
Think about the trajectory of human entertainment. As our global gatherings increasingly migrate away from physical grass fields and into, say, massive digital esports arenas or fully immersive virtual reality spaces, the very nature of how we assemble is changing.
If physical stadiums are eventually replaced by digital domains where national borders literally do not exist, will those new spaces naturally become the ultimate frictionless world peace festivals?
Or will the lack of physically standing hand in hand in the real world only deepen our isolation and our global tribalism?
When the block party goes entirely virtual, does the neighborhood actually heal?
It is a profound, unavoidable question about the future architecture of human connection.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We hope this exploration gives you a completely new, critical lens through which to view the upcoming games and encourages you to keep questioning the mechanisms of the world around you. We'll see you next time, but until then, keep diving deep.